Hello, and today we are incredibly privileged to have the lovely Elaine Godley with us. Um, Hello, Elaine.
Hello, Sarah. Lovely to be here.
Thank you. Um, I would like to ask you, how would you describe yourself? If somebody says to you, "What do you do?" What's your answer to that?
Good question, and one that I haven't perfected yet because I've done so many things over the years. And I'm in personality terms, I'm a high I and a D, so I kind of chop and change. I can be quite a chameleon according to where I am, and in any given day, to be honest. But I specialise in psychology and health. So how our psychological state of mind affects our health, and I use DISC model of behavioural profiling to help me and to help other people to understand very simply what their behavioural strengths are and how they can use those strengths to help in team development, career progression, personal relationships, but more importantly with me now it's health.
Okay, that's interesting. So, what brought the focus onto health?
I was born with a kidney condition, which I didn't know about until my teens. I was a competitive swimmer and I swam at national level. And as a consequence, I was training twice a day in a chlorinated pool. And it was thought that the chlorination of the water kept affecting me for the waterwork infections. So I'd either projectile vomit or I'd have an infection at the other end, and this kept on, a repeating pattern. So mum stopped the biological washing powders, thinking that would help. Started drinking more water. Anyway, and nothing helped. And then well, I was probably about 21, something like that. I got diagnosed with a kidney condition, and I was on antibiotics for 23 years. Um, yes, that is 23 years, not 23 days or months or anything, 23 years. And I was under the medical profession, checked up every 6 months and told, yes, fine, carry on taking the tablets, and away we go. So when I had my daughter 38 years ago, I was in hospital for 10 weeks, and that was because of all the antibiotics I was on and obviously protecting the baby and so on. In fact, I've just written a chapter in Jessica Prime's book, Life After Birth Trauma, which that's another story that we won't go into today. So then life went on, and I've done all sorts of business things. I started my own business over 40 years ago in my early 20s, and did very well, but then also lost it. Then I had lots of things happen over the years in my personal life and my business life, and lots of stress was around, and few people realise how stress impacts on our health.
Yeah.
So it's 19, no, not 19, 2015, I was actually given a year to live with stage 4 cancer, and I beat it in 14 weeks, which is quicker than some people take to get diagnosed. So to answer your question, 2015 was the key kind of change, if you like, when I started looking at disc profiling in a different way. Because I recognised that everything I'd done over the years, whether it was my own business or managing projects for other people, running teams, whatever it was, that behaviour, our innate behaviour is the key to understanding. When we understand that, we can then know how to manage ourselves better and put ourselves in a situation where is more positive than negative. So our self-esteem keeps up, to a high level. Our health keeps up to a high level, and so on and so forth.
I'm going to have to go back to the I beat it in 14 weeks because that's astonishing. If you don't mind, can you tell me a bit more about that?
Oh, yes. Well, by then that was my third cancer. So I'd already had breast cancer twice, and I'd had a mastectomy and reconstruction in 2009, and then 2011, and I had a recurrence. And within the site of my mastectomy, and bearing in mind when you have a mastectomy, you don't have a breast. So I had my breast removed, but I also had it um, what do you call it, remade, I can't think what the word is.
Reconstructed.
Yes, so I had that all done at the same time in the same procedure, but they found a grade 3 tumour within the site of my mastectomy and my stomach. So I wrote a book in whenever it was, called My Right Breast Used to Be My Stomach, because they took my stomach tissue, skin, muscle, the whole bit, and formed a new breast. And intuitively, I think it was around about 2011, 2012, I thought that there was something not right, but I had no pains, no symptoms, no lumps, nothing. But I asked the team at John Radcliffe Hospital in Oxford to check me out, and lo and behold, they found a grade 3 tumour within the site of my mastectomy. So I mention this because each cancer I've had, I've learnt more information. I've learnt more information about myself. I've learnt more information about what we can do to help ourselves. So when in 2015, I was diagnosed with stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma, I'd already got a wealth of information under my belt, and I'd been helping various different cancer charities and so on to help other people as well with the kind of keeping positive aspect of things, because it's not a death sentence. People think when you've got cancer, oh my God, it's, that's it, you're going to die, and whatever. But it's not. Well, it doesn't have to be. Although some personality styles, they literally talk themselves to death, and I find that very upsetting. But it does happen. So 14 weeks, I had learnt about diet and nutrition. I'd qualified in the meantime as a nutritionist. I'd done a lot of work with psychology. I'd been, by this stage, I'd been using the DISC model for 15 years. So I'd learned a lot about behaviour in that time, and different aspects of behaviour, from personal development to team development and everything in between. So I got a great understanding. I also knew about diet being a huge, big factor in reversing many medical conditions are reversible. One of my previous businesses, I used to run cardiovascular health clinics, and I've helped many people identify their risk of having a heart attack or a stroke and help them to reverse their conditions. Even if they've been on medication, they've subsequently learned how to eat properly, how to live their lives properly, so that they are then able to reverse diabetes, heart conditions, all kinds of things. So I've learned a lot. So when my turn came for this stage 4 malarkey, I thought, well, okay, well, what have I learned? What do I need to do? So I stopped all my businesses, literally hunkered down, cut out any negativity in my life from wherever it came, whether it was personal relationships, things I was looking at. I stopped looking at the news and reading newspapers over 20 years ago. I did a master's degree at Nottingham Law School, and to do my MBA, I had to find time from somewhere. So as I say, the newspapers and the television reports, which are all negative, we know that the headlines, the headlines are just negative, and that's what sells papers and news reports. So I cut out negativity. I increased my nutrition levels through juicing. I went and had oxygen therapy, which is quite topical at the moment, because this virus that's around and about, a lot of it is lack of oxygen. So the HBOT, which is hyperbaric oxygen therapy, was something I used. I took cannabis oil. I made my own oil, and took that. I was taking 1 gram a day, which is a very high dosage. And even though it's illegal, and the irony is, I used to be in the police, and my dad was a police inspector. So I was breaking the law, but it saved my life as one of the strategies. So there's a whole bundle of things that I did, and basically, when I took a teeny weeny bit of chemotherapy, because the cancer that I had at that point, lymphoma, it's a blood cancer, and blood cancers do respond quite well to chemotherapy in comparison to other forms of cancer. So I did my risk assessment, and because I'd always managed teams, I managed my medical team as well. They all think I'm bonkers, but hey ho. So with a combination of natural therapies, homeopathy, oxygen therapy, the special oils, so on and so forth, but most of all mindset is absolutely huge. So I was in and out in 14 weeks. So as a result of that, I've now kind of developed a method to use the DISC model in helping business owners with managing their own stress levels, managing their team in terms of productivity, but most of all, bottom line for me is your health.
Wow. Wow. I have no other words. That's astonishing. That's astonishing. Good for you.
So as a result of that, though, I mean, the reason I can do that so easily is because I'm an open-minded person, but I'm also a very um, forthright, direct person, which doesn't always go down too well because I speak my mind, I speak as I find things. But that's what's helped me get through, because in the disc terms, my profile is an I and a D, so that's influential, inspiring, persuasive, chatty, outgoing, people orientated, but it's also the high D, which is all about being direct, getting on with things, accepting challenges, and also needing to be challenged. I can't just, people have said to me over the years, oh God, you do so many different things. That's because I need to, you know, I need to be stimulated. I need to have challenges. If I
I'm
don't have challenges,
smiling. I'm smiling here because I'm the same. I'm high I,
yeah.
high D. So, yeah.
And we're a handful, aren't we? We are a handful for some people because they don't know how to cope with us. And one minute we can be nice, calm, soft, and gentle. The next minute, you know, we're climbing trees and, you know, swinging around, you know.
And people say, goodness me, you've got more energy than women half your age.
Exactly. Well, I'm in my 60s now, and I've no intention of behaving like a 60-something-year-old woman. You know, I'm literally starting from scratch. You can see from the background here, I'm actually living in a caravan at the moment on my friend's land in Portugal. I've come over here because she's got two amazing projects that she's asked me to run for her, and it's quite remarkable. We're going to be building an eco village, and also we're going to be growing organically and hydroponically vegetables in some massive greenhouses that we've just got some EU funding for. So alongside that, I'm also developing my own online disc profiling tool that I've been working towards for I've got nearly 20 years. And I found an organisation, nglobals.com, who are helping me behind the scenes, and the guys there are absolutely fantastic. So I'm multitasking, and I feel I've just come alive, you know. And also, I was discharged last year. I was discharged from hospital a year early because I'd done so well with my own recovery from cancer, and I don't ever consider that I've had I've never been ill. I've never lost a day doing anything, because I just considered it an inconvenience. It's not an illness; it's an inconvenience, and any inconvenience, there's always a way around it.
I have no words, Elaine. Actually, I'm sitting here thinking, I know somebody I need to introduce you to, eco villages, etc. Very, we'll take that offline, but there's
Yeah,
somebody that perhaps I could introduce you to. Um,
great, thanks.
so, taking responsibility for health. How do you help people take responsibility for their own health? How does that work?
Well, I start now these days with behavioural profiling, because when people understand who they are innately rather than who they've been told to be their whole lives, they
Mm,
can then understand why they behave in the way they behave, why when they've done certain things it's worked and why other things it hasn't worked,
mm,
why they react in certain ways. So to me, the whole thing starts, and all the projects I've ever done, all the interim management things, I've done some fantastic things over the years. I've run teams of over 220 people. I've been a chief executive, a chief operating officer. I don't know how many businesses over the years. Um, and it all boils down to behaviour, and how we behave determines our success or not, but it determines our health. So, for example, I've kind of alluded to the fact that I don't consider illness a problem to me. Um, we most of us bring our own our patterns of behaviour result in certain conditions. So I brought my own cancer on, if you like. All the stress I had intellectually, although I felt I was okay, and I've had all sorts of things happen in my life that we don't have time to go into now, but the bottom line was stress. So although intellectually I feel I've coped with things as I've gone along, your body has a tolerance, and your body every now and then will give you signals, and unless you take notice of the signals, then what happens, you know, it says, okay, I've tried, you're not listening, I'm going to give you something that's going to bring you down. So again and again, people who are high achievers or overachievers or influence or whatever we know, whatever we call these people, um, there's an element of stubbornness as well, and not listening because we think that, you know, we've got the answers because we can cope, you know, and we just go on and we push through. But our body has its own way of telling us, and most people are working on the fast lane and they don't realize what their body is telling them. So um, sometimes I've become a go-to person to help people with cancer recovery, and sadly a lot of people find me, you know, and it's too little too late. But even then I've managed to keep people going, sometimes for years, beyond, you know, they've been told to go home and die, basically, you know, make your will, go
Mm,
home, there's nothing we can do for you, this is what the medics are saying. So I've spent a long time talking with them and their families, lifting them up off the floor if they're just absolutely gutted, or bringing them down off the ceiling if they're very cross and angry with how they've been dealt with, whatever it is. But again, going back to your question, understanding a person's own behaviour, and it has to be the person to understand it for themselves. And when they see a report, and I won't give anybody a profile unless either I give them feedback, or I've I'm confident that they've had feedback from somebody maybe that I've trained, or who has been, you know, properly trained in this. Because it's not what's in the report, it's how you interpret it that's really
mhm,
important, as you'll know. So so that's my beginning and my end, really. Understand who you are, understand how you differ to other people,
mm.
and that will then bring its own answers.
Mm. That's quite interesting. You're talking about being stressed but coping absolutely magnificently. I am no spring chicken either. I'll be 55 this year, and one of the things I've learnt about myself over the past only 5, possibly 10 years, is that if I start to get a rash, I need to take note.
Yes, yeah.
And it's like an early warning sign. And I used to think, oh, how irritating! I've got this rash,
Mm,
this itchy rash, and I'd look around for environmental reasons why it had arrived. Have I changed my washing powder? Has the formula of the washing powder I've used all these years changed, or something?
yes,
And it took me a couple of sort of quite significant bouts of not serious illness, but kind of being knocked off my feet with a bug for far longer than you would anticipate being knocked off your feet. And then I realised that this rash always comes first.
yes.
Aha. So, you know, I need to take notice of that rash when it comes and just slow down a little bit. And I
Yeah,
have
and
to say,
it's
slowing
very,
down isn't
yeah.
easy, is it?
No, it isn't. And for people who live in the fast lane, it's not, no. And a rash is very, very common. Lots of people maybe listening to this will think, oh, I've got a rash here and there.
Mm,
Psoriasis, eczema, anything like that comes from the inside out. And it's not very often from topical things. So yes, washing powder can affect it, although I don't use, everything now with me is as natural as possible, and organic where possible.
mm,
So I don't use any medication, and haven't done for years. I don't use any powders, lotions, anything like that that's not natural. I don't use washing powder. I use mineral balls, so I don't have that problem
mm,
with you know, things like that. But the other condition that we've mentioned, we've touched on cancer, but the other condition that happens very, very frequently, or well, very commonly with overachievers, particularly women in business, is ME and fibromyalgia.
mm.
And again, it's pushing through, thinking we're superhumans and not listening to our body, and then suddenly wallop, you know, we're brought down.
Mm, mm. It's interesting because just in the last probably 6 months, we've worked with and I've chatted with a number of coaches who have recovered from ME, chronic fatigue, however you want to describe it. I'm using both terms because they've used both terms.
Yes,
And said, you know, I was sailing along, I was doing this, and this. Everything was absolutely fantastic. I got a bit of a bug, and then bam, that was it. I couldn't get out of bed for 6 months, which is kind of that really is your body saying, shut up and listen, isn't it?
It is, absolutely, and we don't, because we're so used to kind of making do, putting up, shutting up, and off we go, and it's a pattern. I also host a radio show. I'm on air weekly every Tuesday and repeated on Saturday on Elastic FM, and my health radio show, I interview lots of people. I've been doing it a couple of years now, and I love it because for my personality style, being outgoing and friendly and people orientated, and action orientated, what better, and liking music as well, so what better combination around, a health radio show. So many people I've interviewed for the show are therapists who have come to being a therapist because they may have been a business person, exactly what you said, they've burnt out and they've got this conditions that slow them up. Then what happens is that they train in that condition, that therapy that has reversed their condition.
Yeah.
It's so wonderful, they want to tell everybody, so they then become a therapist. But then if they weren't a business person beforehand, the therapist then can't make a business of it because they're giving it away to everybody. So it's interesting, the patterns.
I find the exact same pattern with coaches. That
Yeah,
they discover coaching, they think, oh my word, this is absolutely wonderful. It's
yeah,
a superpower. I'm going to become a coach. And then they
yeah,
sit and go, not sure how to turn this into a business.
yeah, absolutely. And coaching is I've not, years ago I used to refer to myself as a coach. I'm a qualified coach, and been there, done that sort of years ago, but I consider myself now more of a mentor
Yeah.
because of my age and because of all the things that I've done and experienced, and all the coaching experience I have done.
Well, and
I
also because you're not just coaching, you're actually
know
telling people and helping them by giving them information and knowledge. You're filling
that's
a
right.
knowledge gap, which isn't coaching.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. And also, see, with coaching, a lot of people don't appreciate a lot of coaching is about following a process. I am the most non-process person you can imagine. So leading by example, by sharing my stories, my examples, my testimonies, that sort of thing. To me,
Mm,
that's mentoring as opposed to
mm,
coaching. I
mm.
couldn't stick to a process if you paid me, because well, not for a long time anyway. I can do it, but not for a long time, long period.
Yeah. So don't you think that your disc is a process?
It is, but I don't fill the forms in. Other people fill the forms in. That's
Oh,
what
I
that
see.
I find boring. I do the interpretation of it,
Yeah.
and as I mentioned before, it's not what's in there. And I don't even look at reports now. In fact, my model that I'm creating now is not going to have great long reports in. It's going to have pictures, and every picture tells a story. So it's the interpretation of whatever the person's life is about. So you can have the same disc profile as the next person, but there'll be things in their environment, their culture, their education, the whole bit that will be different. So it's how to contextualize things so that it makes sense for the actual person, to me, is really important, not necessarily what's in the report.
Cool. So I say this every single time I interview anyone, but we've nearly used our 30 minutes. It's astonishing, isn't it? So can I tell you what I think I've heard from
Yes.
the conversation that we've had?
Uh-huh.
What I've heard is hugely fascinating woman with an awful lot of experience, business, personal life, etc. And what you've done is woven all of that together to create a business, leaving aside the fact you're in Portugal and building an eco village. That's like as a separate thing, but you've brought all
Yeah.
of that together into coaching, mentoring, practitioner type business, and one which clearly you can do from anywhere.
Exactly. And that's the whole point of I'm living in a caravan. I've done the big houses, I've done the fancy cars, I've done all the stuff. When we're younger, we think we need to do, and we're told that we need to have bigger, better, faster, whatever. And because of our profiles being similar, you'll understand that. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. I've now downsized to the point where it's just ridiculous, but I'm happiest and healthiest I've ever been. So we don't need all these fancy trappings and things, and
No.
nothing is ever wasted either, Sarah. All the things that I've done over the year, whoever would have thought that a conversation I had with somebody 30 years ago is now useful in one of the projects that I'm going to be running. you know, nothing's wasted.
No, and all of it adds to this kind of vast pot of knowledge that we acquire the older we get.
Yes, yeah, we rock.
We do. One of the things that my daughters, I've got two daughters, they're 23 and 18, and one of the things that irritates the life out of them is that I'm always right as far as they're concerned. So they'll tell me a story and I'll say, and they do, "You're doing that face, Mum." I say, "Yeah, I know what's going to happen next." And I'll tell them and they go, "No, no, 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 that's not what's going to happen." And then they come back and say, "Exactly what you said was going to happen happened. How did you know?" And it's like, because I've been walking around this planet longer than you have, and I've seen it before or
Yeah,
something similar, and that's kind of, it's the circle of life, isn't it?
it is indeed.
It's just been so lovely talking to you, Elaine. Thank you so much for your time, and amazingly good luck with your project. I hope you enjoy it, and you're going to be having lovely weather. We've got some sunshine today, but I live in Cumbria, we get a lot of rain. um, Enjoy Portugal.
I shall. I have every intention. I enjoy every minute of every day.
Brilliant. Good to know. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Sarah.